We are back, starting my second stream. If you missed the first stream or want to watch it, it's in my VODs for now. And in that one, we covered the very basics of what you need to get started on a Pavlov level. And we tested it, and it worked. Now I'm going to find it. That is not it. Where is it? Pavlov. Twitch test map. This is the map we made. And now we're loading it back up, and we're going to make it a little bit cooler. One of the things that we were missing a lot of things. One of the things we were missing is a kill volume under the world, which is particularly bad because you could just walk off the world. Once you did that, you fall forever. Okay, when it loads back in, is it loading? It's not showing the right thing, is it? Come on. That is not what I want you to show. We'll just use the left monitor. You're killing me, OBS. Okay. Here's our level again. This is not our level. Where'd our stuff go? When it loads back in, it loads the default level again instead of loading your level. But it should still be where you were looking in the content browser. So just go back to your UGC folder if you're not already there and find your map and load that. Here's our map. Now, one of the biggest problems is that you fall forever. So we want to put in a kill volume. That's a Pavlov kill volume. Is it? Yeah, there it is. Now anything that touches this or even gets like relatively close to it will die. And that's important for, and even if you think your level is like self-contained and there's not a problem, you probably want to put one of these under your level anyway. Just in case something happens to fall through or there's a weird problem, you don't want people to be stuck forever. It's irritating. So what I do is drag it well under your level, like the lowest point of your level. And you want to make it pretty fat because you're falling really fast. So if it's kind of thin, you might just fall through it and it won't actually register that you hit it. So make it pretty fat. And then we're going to stretch it. We're going to make it overly big because we're going to make our level bigger eventually. Like so. Now you can see over here on the right, again, if you've never used UE4, it shows you the scale that you made it. So we have it 11 units tall, 61 wide, 59. That's just what I happen to drag it to. And that is relevant because these units, well, it's actually the scale. It's kind of confusing. Let's get into that a little bit. Let's grab that basic cube we were talking about before. This is 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, which doesn't mean anything in an abstract sense. Like you're looking at this level, you're like, okay, what does that mean to me? This is a Pavlov spawn actor. That's about how tall your character is, which is, you know, about looks like 2 meters tall. It's actually not quite that tall. So one of the things you can do to help you get a sense of scale for things, it's kind of hard to use these because the model goes, or the wireframe goes away. But while you're building your level, that's not the right arrow. You can see those are a little bit more than a person tall. You can take like a cube like this and make it 1.5. So I'm changing the scale of this cube to be 1.5 tall. What the fuck did I just do? Undo. And let's make it like 0.5. So this is about how big a person's going to be. So you need to know this when you're building your level so you don't make your level like ridiculously big, which is a common problem, or too small, which is not as common, but still a problem. Like if you're making a doorway or something. Let's do some cool stuff. Select these edges. Let's not be selecting the edges. Whatever. And we can split that. We can't split that. Let's try and do something cool real quick. Why can't I select the damn edges? Split? Come on, buddy. I guess we just do it like this. Nope, that was wrong. Piece of shit. Why is it so hard to select the edges? There we go. And then we can select this face. Extrude it. I know that. Don't show this again. There. Look, we have a doorway. Wow, that's so cool. Now you don't want to make the doorway too small for your character to go under, because if you're like a really tall dude, like we have some really tall dudes in Pavlov, this might seem really cramped. So I think it's fine for now though. So just be careful when you're building things that they're not ridiculously big or way too small. Our level looks like that now. Okay, so we made our kill volume. We have our fake little actor. You can just leave this in the world while you're building it. One of the things you can do if you want to leave it in your world, you click that, and this is the settings for that object. Go down to cooking, and this is like when you stage your level, is editor only. It will not build it when you build your level. So it'll just chill here in the editor, so you can use it to get a scale for things, but then when you load into the game, it won't actually be there. That's as opposed to actor hidden in game where it does cook it, but you can't actually see it. You just don't want it to cook it at all. All right. Let's do some of the other stuff that you probably want to do. So we have our light here. This is a directional light, I believe, that it starts with in the level. Yeah, see, directional light. Looks like that. And that applies light in this direction, not from this source, just kind of in a general sense. This whole world has light coming down from, where is it? From this way to this way. But there's no shadows. That's weird. You can see shading on the back of it. The reason it doesn't have shadows is because you didn't build the lighting. So we're going to build the lighting, or you can just hit build and it builds the navigation too. This is generally what you want to do before you finish your level, and this can take a while if you have a complicated level with a bunch of like complicated light maps, which is what it uses to determine how it's going to light something. But ours is very basic, so it's going to be done pretty much instantly. And we're done, and look, we have shadows. Super dark down here though. I should have changed the name of my stream. Hold on, I can still do that. Apparently we're going to be messing with lighting and some of the other basics. Not getting started. We are doing lighting, volumes, and basics. Okay. Fantastic. Now, if you want to change, see how even though the light shows it is here, it's still lighting stuff behind it because it's just in a general sense from that direction. You can see the sun is also over there. That's a property of the skybox, sky sphere. And you can change, let's say we want to change where the light's coming from. We can rotate it. Now it's going that way. The shadows aren't going to update because we baked them in. Baking uses static lighting, which this light is, which is saying that this light's always here, and static objects like these cubes that aren't going to move. And now it knows, hey, this light's not going to move. These boxes aren't going to move. This shadow's always going to be here, you know, until you turn the light. That's not relevant. In the game, it's not going to move. And so it builds the shadows first so that it doesn't have to do it in the game. And that makes it run better, which is why we're using static lighting. But in the editor, you can move stuff. And one of the other things we wanted to do, remember how dark the shadows were? We're going to change the, see, that is the intensity, is how bright the light parts are, which honestly is probably a little bit bright. And then the indirect lighting intensity is how much it lights the dark areas, basically. I think it's like off bounces or something, like it actually calculates how the light bounces around off different surfaces. Like if you have shiny surfaces, it'll reflect more, but that's for later. We're going to increase that. If it's like an outdoor map, you probably want it around like 4 to 6, and that's on the wiki too. And so with the light pointing that way, it doesn't make sense for the sun to be over there, but if you click on the skybox, directional light actor, this will, you can, you actually have to refresh it because it still hasn't selected, and then choose it again. And now it's like, oh yeah, okay, the light's coming from over there. You can change a bunch of cool stuff with the sky sphere, like the colors. You can change whether or not the color is determined by the height of the sun. Like if the sun were down here, if the angle was lower, it would be like sunset colors. But that's not a big deal. So let's build the lighting again real quick. This is just the very basics of lighting and setting up your skybox and stuff. Excuse me one second. Okay. Built the lighting again, and it's still really dark. Not quite as dark though. Could Probably crank that up to 6. But that's good for now. We'll build that again when we're done. Sorry, just had my coffee. Apparently makes me cough. Okay. We're going to do some of the other basic stuff that we should probably have. Let's do navigation. So the bots weren't moving, right? There's something called a Navmesh. Navmesh bounds volume. So a volume is just an area, like our kill volume that we put under the level. It just says in this area, do a thing. The kill volume kills you. The Navmesh bounds volume says let bots move here. And you can see by putting it here, it doesn't do anything yet, but it actually is. You just can't see it. We're going to hit P, and that shows you the Navmesh. And this is where bots can move. So right now, if a bot spawns here, he can walk around in this little area. Super useful. Not really. Let's make it a little bigger. And let's actually increase the height. So that's on top of those two. Now we can make sure that our little dudes are in the green area. So if they spawn there, they'll be able to move. Not very far, but we're going to fix that. There's also the ones that are in here, because I'm a doofus. And you can see it said bad size. Let's make it even taller. There we go. I just dragged it out because it was already big enough. You don't need it to be like too terribly big. You don't want it to overlap too many areas that you're not actually going to be using. Because the more stuff that you have it do that isn't necessary, the slower the game's going to run, which is minor in that case, but it adds up. So just as a general rule, don't have it do stuff that it doesn't need to be doing. Should be a guy in here too. Is that him? Yeah, there it is. So that's going to be a bad size too. See? There we go. And you'll see why I'm making sure these are in a nav mesh in a second. The other thing, cool, that you want, or that you have as a tool for the nav mesh are these link proxies. So let's say, for example, we had another box right there. Let's put it like this. There we go. You can actually fit through here. Probably. Yeah. You could easily fit through here in the game, but the nav mesh is playing it safe and not trying to get people stuck anywhere. And so it won't put nav mesh in areas that I think might be too small. That's adjustable, but we can't actually change that because it's really determined by the server, which we don't have access to. So if you try to mess with the nav mesh settings, it might actually cause your bots to just not move at all because it doesn't match what the server is doing. So instead, we can do stuff like these link proxies. So you grab a nav mesh or nav link proxy, and it gives you these 2 points. And now we can rotate it, and you can move it either as a whole, like I'm doing now, by selecting the center part, and you can stretch it sideways, or you can move each individual part. Like if I click on just this blue bit on the inside, I can drag this one over, and look, you see how there's a green arrow. It's actually just barely clipping here. So by having it touch on both sides, now it knows, oh, there's actually a connection here too between these two spots, but only these two spots and not in between. So like if you spawned a dude in between, he wouldn't move. But if a guy's standing here, he'll touch this, and if his AI for some reason wants to be on the other side, he'll say, okay, I'm going to follow this link proxy, and we'll just walk between them. I'm not sure if they can shoot and stuff while they're doing that, but just keep in mind it's just a straight path from here to here, and it kind of bypasses the rest of it. What about these guys that are stuck up here? Well, we can do the same thing. We'll put one up on top. Let's say he can jump off on the left side. So we're going to click this one and drag it down, and boom. We should get that arrow that shows that it's connected. I think as long as it's touching, it's good. Although you can sometimes run into trouble, like if you're having them run up a steep hill or something to get on top of something, they'll like clip against the edge and stop walking. But generally it's pretty automatic where if you set something up, it'll work. The problem with this, of course, is they can't get from the bottom to the top. They can't get from left to right. They can only go from right to left. But you can tell them that that's a thing. So right now it has an arrow. We're looking at the dark green arrow on the bottom and the top. kind of hard to see. There it is. There's an arrow there too. It can't go up. So what we do is we have that selected, our navlink proxy, and we go to simple link. Smart link is not what we're using. It uses simple link. So you open up the point links. There is one set of 2 point links, a left and a right, and there is a direction, and it says both ways. We want it to be only right to left, so the arrow disappeared off this one. Awesome. Now that tells that it can only jump down. So now we can take that navlink proxy, copy paste it, and put it elsewhere. And if I rotate, it's going to rotate around the center point where you see the arrows and stuff. That's the center point, and that can be kind of annoying sometimes. How, like, because I'm drug this left link away from the center point, you can get into trouble sometimes when moving stuff too far from the center point. Some meshes that you download might have the center point in a weird place. So just something to keep in mind. One here, and we just check for the dark green arrow to make sure it's working. And there's some up there too. Oops, didn't want to grab the whole thing. Just going to grab the top one. Cool. And one more. So just copy pasting with keyboard commands. Spacebar to change it. This moving stuff around and scaling it and stuff kind of becomes second nature. It's really easy and convenient, like looking around and doing basic moving stuff in UE4. Really like it for that. All right, so that should be, I mean, you can do more of these, like if this guy wants to be able to jump off the other side too, you can just flip it around. And then he'll, like if he sees a guy over here, he'll jump off this side. If he sees a guy over here, he'll jump off this side. Easy peasy. So that is that. And these again are all team deathmatch spawns. What next? We were talking about reflections. Let's do Lightmass. We were doing lighting earlier. One of the things you want to have in your level is a Lightmass importance volume. And the reason for that is because when you build lighting, it builds everything based off of presets, which I believe you can change, but you shouldn't really need to too much of an extent, because if you use a Lightmass importance volume, it'll light everything in the volume with high quality and everything outside the volume with a lower quality to save you like rendering power and build times and stuff like that. So if you have a big level but only part of it is playable, you want to put this importance volume around your level. And only your level. And that'll make sure that you're getting the best quality that you need without wasting processing. And you want to make sure it's actually high enough. Well, there's nothing up there, so I don't think it's actually lighting it, but don't be too stingy with it. Cool. Now if I had like a landscape, for example, which we'll get into later, then yeah, it would light the playable area nicely, and you'd probably have it blocked off. And then the outside area, you could even have like trees or buildings over there, and they'll look nice from a distance. You wouldn't really notice it. But if you were to walk up on them, the lighting wouldn't be as nice. And that is good, because you don't need that. Okay, so that's our Lightmass. And one of the last things I think we need is a reflection volume. You may have noticed if you watched the previous video, when I loaded into the game, the guns looked kind of dull. It's because there was no reflections. And a reflection, if you're in an outside map like this, you can just use a sphere reflection. If you're building like a building with square rooms, you can use box reflections and try to fill each room or like each big area with a box reflection. And you don't just want to do, like if you do have a room, the reason you may not want to put a, did I delete them both? Where's my sphere? Oh, it's just not showing because I don't have it selected. The reason you don't want to cover everything with one big reflection volume, and I learned this recently, I had done that because it was easier, but if you have a lot of reflections and a lot of light sources or stuff like that, things that might reflect, Like let's say you have a red wall in one room with a light shining on it, so it's like bright red light bouncing around that room, and then you're in a completely different room. If you have one reflection volume covering the whole area, and you're standing in the other room and you look at your gun or like a reflective surface, you'll see the red glow from the other room because it's reflecting off of not the actual walls, but I think the reflection volume like this. But if you're using a big open outdoor area, you can just cover the whole thing and it's not that big of a deal. Like you won't really notice minor things like, oh, if I'm in here, I shouldn't be able to see the reflection of the sun. Like it looks natural and it feels good. Feels real good, man. Okay, it's auto saving for me. So that's our reflection, our lighting. We need to build lighting. Oh, I can turn off the, that's P to turn off the navigation. We don't need to see that all the time. Okay, what else? Let me take a glance at the wiki real quick to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Lights, spawns, navigation, reflection, bomb spots, blocking volumes, that's a good one. Kill volumes, the game logic, we did that. There's ladders, that's a good idea. And bullet penetration. This is a bunch of basic stuff that you probably want to have. Let's skip back to blocking volumes. Okay, there's a couple of ways you can climb around on your levels. Let's go back to geometry, and there's some really cool stair things built in. Go where I tell you thing. Go down. There we go. That was ends to make it go down. This is way too big. All right, we're not going to use that one. As cool as it looks. How about curved stairs? Perfect. Look at that. It's the perfect size. Actually, that's going to be annoying. Let me show you something easier first. We're going to do linear stairs. Okay, we'll flip it around. And we made it so they can jump off the sides. Oh, is it time to go? Shoot. I can go with you. Just one more thing real quick. We still got time. And I'm going to put a blocking volume over these stairs. If you've ever tried walking upstairs that didn't have a blocking volume in the game, your view goes chuk, 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 and it's really annoying because your character doesn't actually smoothly step up. The model just moves. If the stairs are low enough to step on, it moves from this one to this one to this one. So your view is doing like a stepping thing, which is really annoying. You can skip that with another volume that's called a blocking volume. So you put the blocking volume there. I'm not actually going to do this because I got to go. But you can angle it, stretch it out a little bit. This is just a basic idea. Why is it doing that? That's supposed to be whatever. Just like that, for example. I'm just going to show you how that looks if you look at player collision. So instead of it being stuttering stairs, why is that doing that? There, perfect. So now if you were to walk up this ramp, you'll just smoothly walk up it and get to the top. But in the game, it looks like stairs. So I recommend doing the blocking volumes for your stairs. And there's also ladders, and they've added these. Instead of doing like a ramp, like say you're copying a game that you're supposed to be able to jump up on something, but you can't jump in VR, you can either do like a ramp or stairs with a blocking volume to do that instead, or you can put a Pavlov ladder like this, and that's basically like an invisible climbing wall that you can press up against it. I haven't actually tested this myself, but I've seen it in other maps and it works really well. So you can put like a texture here that looks like a ladder, or you can just put it on like a ledge that, you know, would make sense for you to be able to climb up onto, like a small ledge or something, and that works. So that's a couple other basic things. We'll test that later. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to close my stream. And hopefully this was helpful to someone. Thank you very much.